Hi, I'm John Cash. Welcome to John Cash Ministries and Revelations Church's Daily Devotion. Today, the title of our lesson is Pain Brings Prosperity. Sounds strange? All right, let me just say, folks, if you want to see revival, the greatest revivals of all time occur when the church is being persecuted, when the Christians are being castigated, when the Church of the Living God is being attacked by legalistic religious people, by secular democracies, by dictators. And we see this truth in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9 and 10. And I might add, I do believe there's a time coming where the church in America, and I'm talking about the born-again Christian church, is going to see this type of persecution, which will lead to a great revival. Verse 9, Jesus says, I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. These folks were going through a lot. They were going through afflictions. They were going through difficult times. They were going through persecutions like you wouldn't believe. They were poor. They had nothing. And here's what God says, yet you are rich. In other words, when God sees persecution and poverty, when he sees that, he sees opportunity. When we, human beings, see persecution, poverty, we want to run for the hills. But the fact is that is how God operates. He takes the attacks of the devil, turns them around, and blows up the church in a good way. Now, he says, I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Now, this is not a slam against Jews per se, but at the time, there were many Jews, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who were persecuting the church. They hated the way. That was Christianity. It's called the way. And so they were bent, and I would say hell-bent, on stamping out anything and everything Christian. One of their own, Paul, was doing that until he met Jesus, the road to Damascus. And so he says, look, I know that this religious, legalistic crowd, the Pharisees, Sadducees, the Jews of the day, I know that this crowd is all over you, and they're trying to get rid of you. But I want you to know something. What they're doing is slander. They're making up lies about you. People make up lies about Christians all the time. Maybe you've had that happen. And he says they are a synagogue of Satan. What's a synagogue? It's a church. It's a Jewish church. So you got the Jewish church, and it says Satan. Now, not all Jewish churches are of Satan, but in context here, he's saying these individuals who happen to be Jews were basically a church of Satan, because Satan was using them to attack the church. Satan attacks and attacks and attacks, and if we keep our faith, he might win a battle, but he never wins the war, ever. Verse 10, here's God's response. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Now, we're not going to get into the 10 days, but he says here, do not fear the future. Do not fear for your very life. Do not fear if you get thrown in jail. I'm telling you, folks, there's a time coming. I am seeing this politically correct movement coming against New Testament Christianity, biblical Christianity, and the laws of God. And it's sooner than you think. People will be thrown in prison. People will lose their jobs. Trust me, I understand these things. And let me say, God says, when we enter that phase, you got to be ready. He says, be faithful, even to the point of death. Why? Because death for the Christian is life eternal. Death for the Christian means forever with Jesus in heaven. And the prize, he says here, and I will give you the crown of life. Some translations would say the victor's crown. That's a promise from God. And so look, God doesn't want you heading to heaven by the skin of your teeth. He wants you heading into heaven with a victor's crown. And when we begin to serve God in truth and spirit, when we begin to just fall in love with him and stand for his word, we will be persecuted in this culture in America today. And it's then that you don't shrink back, but you stand up and proclaim the word of God. God bless you. Thank you for your support of John Cash Ministries and Revelations Church.